Partnerships Manager for Gloucestershire. I'm a very local boy. I was born about half a mile over there, and I currently live about half a mile over there. So I haven't travelled far this morning, which is good for me. Working with Jobcentre Plus. What I thought I'd do is look at what our priorities are, basically what interests us. Look at our structure, because I know different areas have, you talk to different people in different areas, and I was just trying to explain, you know, how we structure ourselves locally, so you know who you're talking to, and then talk something about working locally, which is the key to this. You know, if you can make provision interesting and relevant, then you know local offices will buy into that. So, first of all, our priorities. Jobcentre Plus, national organisation, part of the Department of Work and Pensions. A quarter of the civil service is employed in the Department of Work and Pensions, and we spend a third of your money. So we're quite a large department. Jobcentre Plus is part of DWP, and our priorities are pretty straightforward. What we call offlow. In English, numbers of people into work and off the register. That is our first priority. That is what we're there to do. As a stepping stone to that, we're interested in provision that increases people's employability, both in terms of vocational skills and key skills and confidence building and all those things. So if provision leads into jobs or increases people's employability, you automatically have the attention of Jobcentre Plus. Provision is more interesting to us where it is related to job search and employers. So if provision has job search built into it, which leads to offlow, or working with employers, which leads to vacancies, that is automatically of interest to Jobcentre Plus. Looking forward, some of you may have heard about welfare reform, which starts in about 8 days' time. We are extraordinarily interested in two aspects of other provision, may or may not be relevant to today. Financial inclusion, with things like universal credit. In the past, where we've managed money for people, we won't. And we'll be giving people their money to manage themselves. For some people, this will be a bit of a shock. So financial management, financial inclusion is an area of provision that we're interested in. And lastly, digitalisation. Certainly with universal credit coming along, the intention is that 80% of work regarding claims will be done online by the individual. So we're trying to move now where job seekers allowance is done 80% online. In the future, universal credit, 80% of claims will be dealt with online. So those are sort of key skills, employability skills, life skills that interest Jobcentre Plus going forward. Okay, our structure. Jobcentre Plus is organised into districts. My district is Gloucestershire and the west of England, which is Gloucestershire, Bristol, Bath and North East Somerset. You work in a Jobcentre Plus district. It will probably be several counties. It will probably be quite a large geographical area. We report into a district manager. He or she has some freedoms and flexibilities to design the district how they want and to deliver the services how they want, which means that the GWE model is not the same as the Wiltshire model, is not the same as the Lancashire model, is not the same as the Stranraer model, because we all do it differently within a certain degree. There are key services and schemes that we have, but we deliver them in different ways. In terms of local provision, there are three main people. There's the third-party provision manager. Each district has a third-party provision manager. It is their job to manage our contracted provision, things like the work programme, but also, generally speaking, to oversee what we call non-contracted provision, provision provided by colleges and others, which is funded largely by the Skills Funding Agency. Now, we don't deliver that provision. We have no responsibility for the delivery of that provision, but we're of course interested in that provision, because if it's of interest to us, we will send people to it. So third-party provision manager, very important role. Coming down on a more local area, you get people like me, who's the local partnership manager. My job is to talk to anybody who wants to talk to Jobcentre Plus from the statutory, voluntary or community sector. They normally speak to me first so we can understand what they're interested in, and I can then make the relevant referral or say to them no. Now, in Gloucestershire, certainly with Angela, you know, we correspond quite regularly. Within our team, we also have account managers. They're basically employer-facing managers. It's their job to talk to employers, to persuade employers to make use of Jobcentre Plus schemes and programs, to make employers and to encourage employers to take on Jobcentre Plus customers. If you're designing a piece of provision that includes employers, very, very, very useful to speak to account managers. However, the most important people are local managers and staff, job centre managers and staff, or advisors. The third-party provision manager and the local partnership manager and the account manager can do lots of work, but if the local staff are not engaged or not interested or don't think the provision is any good, we won't send anybody. And in the past, where relationships are not good, that often happens, unfortunately. We put on provision and nobody comes. And so I think, in terms of communications with Jobcentre Plus, I know it's difficult, but you've got to think in terms of those three levels of contact. Working locally, based on our experience here in Gloucestershire. Firstly, if you have an idea for a provision, talk to us about it. Now, that's not for us to tell you what to do, but talk to us. Talk to us about the client groups. Talk to us about the provision you're interested in. Talk to us about employers that you might engage with. Again, Angela and I have corresponded recently about self-employment provision and lone parents, because they're a big area of interest in ours, and just, to get your views. And that would be useful. Most importantly, once you've got the provision in your mind, I would suggest that you meet with the local job centre managers and their advisors and invite them around and have a look. If they know where the provision is, if they know how to get there, if they know what the provision entails, if they know the people delivering it, it's an easier job for them to refer people to it. Because it's not an abstract thing, they know where it is. They know what it is. They know who you're going to be talking to. Referral systems. Jobcentre Plus is a great one for simple paper systems, aren't we? You've got to be practical. There has to be certain paperwork. Certainly with our provision, SL2s are almost required and mandatory. But very often, exchanging lists or phone referral systems work much, much better. We can do all the paperwork later. It's how you refer the client to the provision. And try and make that as simple and straightforward as you possibly can. As I say, there will be an amount of paperwork, inevitable. But always think about the best way for the client. Give Jobcentre Plus plenty of time to recruit. We see our register job seekers allowance clients on a fortnightly basis generally. So at least 2 weeks from flash to bang, as it were. Actually, 4 weeks would be better, because that gives us 2 cycles to tell people about provision. If you ring us up on a Friday and say we've got people starting Monday, that ain't good. And it's very unlikely that we'll be able to get many people to you. But if you think in terms of 2 week cycles, everybody in an office who's on job seekers allowance will be seen within a fortnight. So if you give it 2 cycles, then you've given us 2 bites of that cherry. Keep referrals warm. If we are referring people 4 weeks before provision, our experience tells us, having made the referral, if you don't contact that person then for 4 weeks, very often they won't turn up. So the idea is to ring them or write to them just to say, we have your details, don't forget the provision, have you got any questions, sort of thing. Even with our own interviews, when we send letters out, we very often ring now the day before to say you are coming, aren't you? And believe it or not, the attendance rate for those interviews have risen dramatically. People do tend to get a letter, stick it, if not in the bin, then, perhaps on the, somewhere else, and they often forget about it, believe it or not. Now, for us, if you don't turn up for an interview, you may well lose your benefit. So, even a simple phone call from us improves our attendance rates tremendously. Also, when people find a job, they don't often tell us. So a simple phone call to say, well, actually, I'm not coming because I've got a job. And that gives us the heads up to close the claim and do all the administration. For you, if you've got people from Jobcentre Plus coming, a phone call could be the difference between expecting them and not expecting them. Provide simple and clear information for starters. This links in with the next one, a warm welcome. For many of our clients, going to a place like this is a very, very intimidating experience. Many of them will have not done well at school or have not been to school for many, many years. So think about in terms of when they walk through this door, is there someone to meet, greet, to tell them what to do, to make that transition across the front door easy? Because if it's just queue up with everybody else, I'm not quite sure what I'm here for, it all turns horribly wrong, and they walk out the door. So think of in terms of a warm welcome and making it as easy as you possibly can for them. As I say, a lot of people tell us, colleges, I wasn't very good at school, I don't really want to go back there. But if you think about giving people good information how to get there, where the bus routes are, where the pickups and drop-offs are, where you need to go, and if possible have a member of staff to actually meet and greet people and ease them through the front door. Because very often there's some evidence to suggest that people go in the front door and then come straight back out again. For Jobcentre Plus, feedback on starters, the quicker the better is great. And the quicker you can give us that information, the better. And again, that cements the local relationship. A quick phone call, 11 people started, these are the 4 that didn't. Now that means that's in our system and we can tackle those people. It may even be that we can get them to you, but more likely, there's what we call an interview without coffee with the individual to find out why they didn't come. Data sharing. There's the hard way, and then there's the easy way. The hard way is by email. Don't do it. We get apoplectic about national insurance numbers and all those sorts of things going out of our system. So we generally don't do that. The very best way is a written list of names that's plopped on somebody's desk and say, here are the people who are going to come, and perhaps a written list of names that comes back to us saying they attended and they don't. Another simple way is the phone. You can transfer a lot of information by phone. So think of the data protection, and how we can overcome that. It's not designed to be difficult, it is designed to protect information. But there are methods that you can use to get over that. Sharing feedback on completers, those who finish the course, if there's any particular thing that they want to do, I don't know whether you produce action plans, that may be useful to feed back into Jobcentre Plus. It's where they go from here. So rather than just finish the course and then leaving them, there's some continuity there. Sharing information about jobs and sign-offs. If that individual has applied for any jobs, let us know. If they've got a job, let us know. That's great news. That's off-flow. If people have got a job, either on your provision or very, very shortly after, and you tell us, that gives you enormous credibility. Because it proves the provision works. Sharing client feedback. I'm sure you all take feedback from clients about your provision. I think you pretty much have to for the skills funding agency. Sharing that feedback. And again, if you make any changes to the provision or apply any lessons learned, let us know. What this is all about is making the provision an easy sell for the advisors. If the advisors know the clients, know the provision, know the benefits of it, it's an easy sell for them. If they've never been along, if they don't understand it, if it's at a place they've never visited, it's very difficult for us to be enthusiastic when we sell provision to clients. And you know, if we're enthusiastic about provision, and if the client knows that they'll be talked to before they start, and when they start, and after they start, you'd be amazing what that can do to attendance rates. So in terms of working locally, third-party provision manager is important, local partnership managers and account managers are important. The most important people are local office managers and their advisors. If you persuade them, the people will come.
So I'm going to talk about Unitized accreditation because it's something we've been developing over the last sort of year and a half and started using it at the college. Sorry, I've just run up the stairs because the toilet is this one. Okay, so first of all, I'll just give you a little bit about the background of the college and our department so you can get a feel for how we got to where we are today. So we started the department in July 2009 when the college secured some ESF funding for 6 months plus unemployed. I'm sure most of you remember that. And we just started with 3 staff. So there was myself, never worked in a college before, from a commercial background, recruitment, a bit of training, a bit of hospitality management. I got an administrator and that was allowed a tutor. So we started very small. The funding was awarded in April, but you know, we came in and we pretty much started delivering straight away. I quickly realised one of the key factors to success was going to be having, surprise, surprise, a really good relationship with our local job centre. So that was one of the things we started with, and we had a lot of talks with the job centre and built a really good relationship with them from a very early start so that we could quickly get referrals moving, and we started very quickly. We also used labour market intelligence to decide on what we were going to offer. So I've just been in recruitment, so I've got a bit of a feel for what the employability market was like. Did a little bit of research, spoke to the job centre, spoke to some local partners and decided what we were going to offer as sort of a core, but we started very small. Something we did a little bit differently to most colleges, I think, initially, is we managed to convince our job centre not to refer to individual provision, but to refer everybody to us, and we would do some employability skills with them, and then we would decide what was suitable for them going forward and then feed that information back to the job centre. So we did 3 mornings as an induction period. It was ESF funded, so it wasn't accredited. We wrote our own programmes, we did barriers to employment, a little bit of interview skills, did some action planning. Also gave us the opportunity to do some basic skills assessments, find out what level they're at and what provision was most suitable. And then we'd do an action plan for each learner that was individual to their needs. Because we were very new initially, and because it was started in July, it was quite good because we could feed people into existing curriculum provision that started in September. What I realised though quite quickly is that once September had started, yes, we've got our employability skills, but what we were going to do with all these learners that we needed to sort out before January came. So that was quite a challenge initially. So we realised we'd have to stop putting some provision on and delivering some more than just employability ourselves to keep everyone warm and to move forward. So we, as the months went on, we started delivering our own curriculum. We got the curriculum areas to do some stuff, so we got the IT department to deliver some IT for us, because that was probably the biggest out of any need. We delivered a security course through a local security firm, and we got the care department to do a little bit of care, and we asked our construction department to deliver CSCS training because there was a lot of need for CSCS cards. They couldn't do it, so we delivered it ourselves. And customer service. So we just had a very, very small offering, but that's what the labour market intelligence was telling us. These are the core things that will support people getting into employment. These are the jobs that are available, and this is also what people are looking for, and it's getting that balance right. Okay? So that's how we started. Through the 6-month plus offer, which we did for about 18 months, we had 800 enrolments, so lots and lots of referrals initially. And we got about 25% job outcomes. Now, I don't know if you remember, but that was job outcomes with training. That's not talking about training because that was quite difficult to achieve. But job outcomes itself, sustainable job outcomes, we got 25%. We then followed with routes into work, and then we didn't get the next ESF contract, but we subcontracted it from other local partners that couldn't meet their delivery. So Amersham Wickham College and A4E both subcontracted some of their work to us, which allowed us to keep going. But it wasn't enough funding for us, so we realised, well, we need to do something else. And accredited units had just been announced, and so we started quite quickly doing some research around them so we could work out how best to use them. We also were funded a little bit by lots of council projects. We do have a very strong relationship with lots of partners in Milton Keynes, and that's one of our keys to success. And so little pockets of funding from other projects as well, mainly council funded, enabled us to widen what we were offering to people and make us sustainable. So these are all very similar projects: neighbourhood employment, Fishmead employment project, and housing employment office, but targeting specific groups of unemployed learners, and some additional funding to help them. So here's where we are today. We do still have quite a lot of funding from the Neighbourhood Employment Programme, which is council funded through Adult Continuing Education, and they pay us to manage the project, but also to deliver 9 job clubs we deliver throughout Milton Keynes, and then other partners deliver ACE themselves, and Women in Work deliver. There's 22 in total. But that's something that's not funded through normal adult learner responsive funding, so it enables us to support the programme as a whole. And as I say, we started with Unitized accreditation. Initially, it was just to supplement our income and to keep us going, but as we don't do any ESF funding now, it is our main source of income. So that's just a bit of an overview of where we're up to. Can it work? Maybe not. I'll go over here, sorry. Okay, so as I say, we started with 9 hours worth of employability delivery. Where we are today is we actually do a lot more within that. So we deliver 21 hours, which is just 3.5 days intensive induction programme. And within that, again, we still initially assess people, so literacy, numeracy and IT skills. We also then have used now 3 different EdExcel units, employability units. Now, I'm sure you've all seen there's hundreds of employability units from different awarding bodies on the market. If I'm honest, we already had direct claim status with EdExcel as a college, so that was quite an easy one for us to move forward with. And so the self-assessment one was quite appealing to me because the nature of it allowed us to fund part of our induction, really, because we embedded lots of other skills within our induction. So part of the self-assessment is we were diagnostically assessing numeracy and literacy, and we'd do the college induction. It all formed part of that first day. We also have always integrated National Career Service, or Next Steps as it was, into our service. So from day one, although we don't pull funding down for it, they deliver part of our induction programme for us. They are very supportive in terms of how they meet their targets. So they do group sessions so everybody can benefit from CV writing skills, etc. And they also meet people on a one-to-one. They're only targeted with, I think, 35-minute appointments for people now. But because we give them such a good level of referrals, and we have one specific advisor that looks after all our learners, she'll give them our appointments, so she'll sit and write a CV and give to a high standard for us as well. But then she gains a little bit of back by doing quite big group sessions, so it works both ways. We do individual learning plans that are very specific to the learner's needs. So everyone will have a one-to-one during that induction time for at least half an hour, so we can really get to know them and find out what's going to be right for them. And we try and match them, one with labour market demand, because that's really important, and try and manage their expectations a little bit, because as I'm sure you're all are used to, you know, sometimes their expectations about the job they want to do and what's available in the labour market don't always match up exactly. So it's about supporting them to look at roles that are, you know, within the labour market, but also encouraging them to aspire to other stuff as well. And also, we now use mainly accredited units. We do some awards mainly as well, but most of our delivery is accredited units. So that it's quite holistic. We also use lots of partners. So if we're not delivering something that a learner needs, and I know of another course from another partner, we're very much about supporting them and telling them about other provisions available. So we're not precious, because I think the learner's got to be at the centre of everything we do. It's got to be about them. And if you're working in this type of environment and you want to keep everything for yourself, that's not right for the learner. So we are, you know, if there's better provision or other specialist providers that offer something, it actually improves the whole offer. So I think that's quite important. And we also still feed into main curriculum where appropriate. Now, we don't deliver the basic skills and ESOL within my department specifically, but as a college we do, and they've now set up a programme for us, so they have special programmes just for JCP referrals, where they're 2 lessons a week instead of 1 lesson a week, and they're with monthly entry points, which was quite a challenge for me to get them to do that rather than termly, because, you know, in terms of a claimant need, they need to access to provision straight away. Okay, so that's where we're at today. As I mentioned before, we do other types of thing as well. So we're really lucky in that we've got such a good relationship with the council, and we get funding to be able to deliver 22 different job clubs across Milton Keynes. So we're out in the community in the areas of highest deprivation and supporting learners in their local community. So it helps to diffuse those barriers, and the employment support workers that run those job clubs are also based at the college, so there's that link there. So when we do get them through the door and into college, they've got already got a relationship building, which helps with what Martin was saying earlier about, you know, college being really intimidating. So that's one way that we overcome that. We also we've delivered now probably about 40% of delivery is actually for work programme providers, mainly Maximus in our area. So as well as Jobcentre direct referrals, because that wasn't quite giving us enough to be able to put on the number of courses and the frequency of courses that we wanted to. So we started delivering in work programme providers as well, and that's really helped to keep us sustainable. One thing we've probably done about 20 over the last couple of years is sector-based work academies or pre-employment training programmes, and we found them really, really successful. So where we find an employer, or the Job Centre have found an employer with multiple vacancies, then we'll put something together. And the accredited unit really helps with that, because it allows you to be a bit more flexible with what you can deliver. You can pick a unit from one thing and a unit from another thing, and be able to put something that's a little bit more responsive to what the employer's looking for that particular job or role. We also have some LSIS funding for shorter programmes, so it just gives us that flexibility to be able to adapt things to what's needed at that particular time. And then adult continuing education, our local council education provider also pay us to deliver some stuff that they don't have the capacity to deliver as well. So it just gives us an all-round flexibility. And where we started from, where we came from. So the first thing we did is get some up-to-date labour market intelligence. I think we're going to have some the experts on labour market intelligence, but we actually got a lot of information when we went to a previs at the Cassim Stadium about how to use it, and we took a lot from that, and so that was really crucial to actually make sure we're getting really local intelligence on what the demand is. Obviously, we have, as I said, good relationships with all our partners, so getting the input from all our partners, looking at what other partners were delivering as well, so we weren't duplicating, because there's no point everybody delivering the same thing, because you're just diluting, your client base. So we looked at what they were delivering and said, okay, well, we could deliver that, but what's the point? Because there's 3 other people delivering it. Let's concentrate on other things that are needed. And obviously our own experience from delivering those programs as well. So we pulled all that together, and we decided on what were the new course. So we're always changing out what we're offering, because you have to move with the times, and at different times of year, different things are in demand. So we're constantly changing. Again, that's Unitized delivery allows us to be a little bit more flexible in that way. So we decided on what the core things we would like to offer, and spread our wings a little bit from the 5 key things that we're really doing before, and try some different options. So we identified what we wanted to, 2 sections, the employability type stuff, and also personal development type stuff, and then the vocational qualifications as well. And then I couldn't find a quick way to do this, so so if anybody's looking for tips on this, I'm sorry, I don't know that I can help, but a lot of research. So if anybody's been, you just go on the Skills Funding Agency, there's a link there to all the Unitized accreditations, and there's thousands of them, and it is just a painstaking, it's just about going through and finding things that are suitable. It's not quick, it's not simple, but once you've got a feel for it and you get used to it, it does get quicker. But we spent a lot of man hours researching and going through them and finding the right thing, and I think that was probably what probably puts a lot of people off, I would think. So we did do a lot of research, and the way we did that is, so you'd look at the accredited units, and then we'd backtrack on LARA, make sure it was still fundable, because there were changes as well, or it hadn't been updated on LARA, so that was often a challenge. I could see some head nodding. Yeah. And then we'd go back even further and look at off-qual and look at what awarding bodies were delivering. Once as this system's evolved, a lot of awarding bodies, I'm sure, have realised this, and are actually very proactive in marketing what units are available from that particular awarding body. But initially, that's how we did it, and it was quite time consuming, but it was worth it in the end, because now we're a lot more adept at doing it, and we can do it a lot more quickly. So that's probably the longest bit, but it is worth it. Once we'd done that, we identified a few specific awarding bodies. Either the college was using them already, or we really liked what they had to offer, and we started working with awarding bodies. And a lot of them we didn't have direct claim status with, so it's about building that relationship, delivering things, getting and make so we had a much quicker claims process. Because one of the barriers I found is that, especially with Unitized accreditation, your learner wants a response straight away. They want to have passed the course and get the qualification. So the internal verification and the EV process, and sometimes 6 months down the line, it's too long. So we worked as hard as we could to try and get direct claim status as quickly as we could, and we do have that with most of the awarding bodies we're delivering with now. But again, because we keep changing everything we're doing, sometimes you don't get that straight away. So we decided on what awarding bodies we were going to use, and then we worked with our local, well, we call it CIS, but MIS department, your information systems department at the college, just to make sure that we were doing the right paperwork, that the funding was right, how we needed to set them up, etc. And it was a learning curve for them, because they'd not really had a lot of experience of dealing with setting up Unitized delivery and accredited, and getting the funding evidence and that kind of thing. So we worked very closely with them to make sure that the systems were in place. And we did have a couple of pitfalls at the time. We enrolled a lot of learners before we realised they weren't being enrolled properly by enrolment, so we were only getting half the funding, or we were getting no funding.
And we've now got those systems in place. You know, we've learnt the hard way, but we've now got those systems in place so that, and especially a skills funding agency now, have relaxed the rules in terms of eligibility or proving eligibility. It's allowed us, you know, to get everybody to self-declare, so if we don't get the evidence, we've got a backup, and that's made a massive difference to us. And then we started delivering. So we started delivering, we started with a few things, we expanded and expanded, we're always trying new things, and we constantly review them. So we plan a term at a time, probably a month or 6 weeks or so before that term's due to start. Put everything in place, look at what's been popular, what the learners have said, look at, you know, the learner voice and getting feedback from them. Speaking with Jobcentre and your local stakeholders and doing more LMI research, and the circle goes on, and then you continue. So that's how we've got to where we are. These are the awarding bodies we work with at the moment. Personally, from going through that experience, I probably think it would be better in the long term working with fewer awarding bodies and getting that. But at the time when we started it, really getting what we needed, it wasn't all available under one heading and one awarding body. So we did find that we've experimented with quite a few. But obviously, the more awarding bodies you've got, they've all got different requirements, and it gets more complicated. You know, although we're using these 5 and we've got quite a good relationship with them now, I think long term we'll probably reduce that down slightly. Okay, so these are just to give you an idea of the type of things we deliver. These ones are the employability type units that we deliver on a regular basis. We have tried lots of other ones as well, but these are the key ones that we're offering at this particular term, or next term rather. So these are the employability ones. The self-assessment, preparing for interview for skills are our induction programme. Applying for a job, we're delivering it for work programme providers at the moment, along with interview prep and skills. So we do all their employability training for everybody that comes through the job centre, and for JCP for the people that referred to us. IT is quite a big thing, so we have lots of different levels of IT qualifications, from how to turn a computer on to, you know, sort of level 2 ITQ we go up to. But again, Word and spreadsheets tend to be the most popular IT courses that are quite, you know, flexible depending on what work you're trying to get into. Then we've got more personal development stuff. So we've just found a confidence building one, which we're looking for ages for a suitable unit. This is the one we were using previously, assertiveness and decision making, which was the closest match we could find. But we've just found one that we'll be developing shortly. Problem solving and interpersonal skills. Again, these ones tend to be really popular with work programme providers that need that little bit more intervention and social skills development, that kind of thing, and confidence building, but we do them for all employability learners. And then some more vocational stuff. Now, because they're units we're giving intros into, we will then look at developing into, you know, awards or bigger qualifications, but it's about delivering something that's quick, easy, and giving people a taste and getting the foot in the door and building the confidence. And what we tend to do is try and match a lot of units together to form a package that's you know, ultimately going to give learners a qualification, but while protecting ourselves in the meantime, because it doesn't affect your success and retention. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. So planning and enterprise activity, self-employment. Health and safety in construction, we managed to find a unit that's really to prepare people to get the CSCS card, but obviously because of SFA funding regulations, you can't prep people for something that's an employer specific qualification that the employer is expected to deliver. But of course we know that it's a barrier to getting into employment. So we managed to find a unit that will prep people for this, and then they'll go back to the Jobcentre advisor or Maximus advisor, and then they'll pay for the test and the card. When we had ESF funding and we were a lot richer, we'd do all that as well, but unfortunately we don't have the funds to do that now. And effective customer service, obviously really important, and we've got a unit and we also do an award for customer service. And these ones we've done more recently: contact centre, telephone techniques. We've always done introduction to care and childcare, but we have had a disparity with the level of the qualification and the level of the learners that want to go into it, and that's been quite a challenge for us to find the right units for that at the right level, because there's a lot of underpinning knowledge that's quite relevant in that industry, well, in our experience, and the learners aren't always at the right academic level to take all that on. So that's been a bit of a challenge. So that's the key ones that we're offering at the moment. Wrong way. Then we do a few awards as well. So obviously, in terms of employability skills, I don't know if this is just my opinion, but I don't think the qualification itself is as relevant to getting people into work. It's a method of funding. Whether that's right or not to say, I don't know. But, you know, if somebody puts interview skills on the CV, that's pretty, you know, they're setting themselves up for a fall potentially, because then the employer expects them to be fabulous at interview skills, and they wouldn't have been doing it if they were fabulous. So we've moved them along the journey, but that's not always the best thing to be encouraging them to put on the CV. So with the employability skills, we do just stick to units, and obviously they get the qualification, but for us it's not really about getting the qualification. Obviously, when you're talking about more vocational skills, I think it is really important. So whilst we'll start them potentially doing spreadsheets, Word, Access, whatever, then we'll look at putting them on an award, so they'll get a recognised IT qualification. Customer service is quite a nice, customer service, sorry, mistake there.
It's fine in the PowerPoint.
Oh, good. So customer service, online basics is just an award we use, but it's a very basic. This is a mouse, this is a keyboard, because that's obviously quite a big barrier to a lot of people. They're quite frightened of IT, so that's quite a good award that we use. And these are the key ones that we tend to get into mainstream curriculum. So bookkeeping, preparing to teach in the lifelong learning sector, counselling, but mainly ESOL literacy and numeracy. And again, we've managed to get the curriculum areas to develop roll-in, roll-off programmes that so people can get into those quite quickly. So that's what we're delivering. Now a little bit about what I think the real benefits of doing Unitised delivery are. Again, it allows a very holistic approach. You can mix and match, you can set up your own programmes, you can do, and you're protecting yourself with, you know, it's not as big a concern about success and retention and achievement. Obviously that's important still, but it's not going to be, in terms of Ofsted rules and the rest of it, it isn't going to knock your whole college down when you've got unreliable learners, if you're getting people on on units rather than qualifications. And it's individual to each learner, so a learner might not want to commit, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to a particular qualification. By getting them just to do a unit, and then getting them to buy into the process, buy into the system, building the confidence a little bit, you can encourage them then to go on to do other units, so they don't have to commit to a massive thing. They can commit to a 1 or a 2 day course. And then you're responsive to current demand, exactly the same thing. You can change them easily, you can swap and change them. If you get an employer who wants you to set up a sector-based work academy, you know, you can slot in lots of different qualifications or lots of different units quite quickly that you've already got, and make a programme that's specific, so you can be very responsive. I don't know if you've realised this, but often the units are funded at a higher level of GLH than Guided Learning Hours than the equivalent awards. So, for example, the EdExcel one that we use, if I delivered that as an award, and I do deliver 3 units, so I could deliver it as an award, it's funded at 25 Guided Learning Hours. By delivering them as individual units, it's 39 Guided Learning Hours. So, because obviously one of the challenges of delivering to this cohort of learner is that they can be unreliable. You don't know how many people are going to turn up. You don't really want to do massive class size that you need to do to make courses viable. So this is just one way to offset that a little bit. I assume it's because they've recognised that, and I'm just getting here, that they've recognised that, you know, it can be more challenging to deliver to this cohort of learners, and therefore it's funded a little bit higher. But that does make it, you know, a lot more appealing. As I said before, Ofsted rules not apply, so on whatever system your college uses, on ours there's a little box you tick and it doesn't affect you. Your college will still look at it, but it doesn't affect in terms of your success and retention for the whole college. I've already mentioned this a little bit already, but again, it gives you that opportunity to really sell a bespoke package for sector-based work academies, which, as we know, is the government's theme at the moment, and what they're really keen to get behind. And as I said, I think I've already mentioned this already, but we use it to fund our induction model. So the self-assessment unit, because it's quite flexible, we embed lots of induction stuff in there, and we are able to cover, because otherwise that induction model wouldn't be fundable, and it's very difficult to then be viable. So we found units that sort of fit and blend in quite nicely to do that. Obviously it supports the learners, the personal and economic situation. The more you can get them involved in education and learning, you know, the more you can get them to do, and it's going to improve their prospects. And because of what we do, you know, we start delivering in areas of high deprivation, so we're actually going to the learners, so they're quite intimidated often by coming into the college. So it enables us to engage with them where they need to be, and do short, quick courses where you can actually get them involved and get them in. And if they don't come back after, you know, they aren't quite ready for education yet, and it is too much for them, you can still usually get, you know, some courses you can do in a day or maybe 2 days, and you've just delivered a unit, and it actually at least you get them engaged and you get them through a full qualification or a part of a qualification, which is good. And it also helps us develop sustainable partnerships, not just with employers, but also with local partners and things as well. So we do a lot of cross referrals, a lot of quick things that will enhance another partner's provision, and it works really well. And also it's really good to put in your bids, because it's very, you know, it's very flexible. You know, we do a lot of well, I don't do a lot of bid writing, but our department does a lot of bid writing, so it's quite a good model to use. Okay, so there's some of the brilliant things about using accredited units, but there's also, as I'm sure you may well have already realised, some barriers to it as well. So these two sort of go together. It takes a long time to do the research, to get yourself set up, to get to work on what delivery partners you're going to use, what units you're going to deliver, what awarding bodies you're going to use, and it's quite admin heavy. It takes quite a while to sit and plan, because you're delivering lots of little units, and also your learners potentially might only do one unit, for example. You've still got to enrol them, you've still got to write to them to remind them about the course, you've still got to phone them 3 times to make sure they're definitely going to come. And that is very administration heavy. You know, we're almost like a college within a college, if you like, because curriculum area, you might have a full-time course. They do that process once. We do it for every single learner, and sometimes for 1 or 2 courses. So it's very, very administration heavy. But if you don't put the admin in, it's not successful. And so that's one of the biggest barriers we've found to it. We're constantly trying to engage more with the curriculum and get them to deliver stuff. But because of their model of delivery and what they're used to, we could try and get them to, I've tried getting them to do the administration, and then the course disappears, and because it is so admin heavy, and everybody's very conscious of time and what's available, and we've, you know, as a college, I'm sure many others, we've had lots of redundancies and all the rest of it, and staffing is very tight. So although we don't get financially rewarded for it, as a department, we do all the administration for the curriculum is to make it happen. But that's how we've found so we can offer what's actually needed, and to get the best continuity for the learners, so that they're speaking to the same people and we've got that relationship with them. We found that that's been, you know, quite necessary. And as I said, it's not the most profitable thing to do. You know, it's because it's admin heavy, because it's quite a labour intensive. Because we're doing administration for other curriculum areas as well, we're never going to make the college lots of money. But on the opposite side of that, you know, we're making a massive contribution in terms of social and economic development and inclusion and all the rest of it. So you're never going to make lots of money from it, and if that's what you need to do, then, you know, it's not going to happen. When, you know, ESF funding, fabulous, but it's not the way anymore. Getting it right in terms of benefit evidence is quite critical. I don't think it's a real barrier once you've got it right, but making sure that you get the correct evidence that it's going to be fun, that a learner is going to be coming and you're actually going to pull the funding down that you need to them, because we've already said it's not very profitable. So then if you find out that your system's only co-funded them or not funded them at all because the volume of people you're enrolling and they're not being enrolled exactly correctly, it can be a big barrier, because if you don't get that evidence on the system straight away, so we scan all our evidence and we keep it, and we know that it will be able to use it for the next 3 months, so we keep it on system for them. But again, that's quite labour intensive. But then trying to get that learner back once they've gone off into the ether to get their evidence because it's not there, very, very difficult. So it's getting that right, I think, is quite crucial. And because, especially if you're using new awarding bodies, it's important to get that relationship and get to direct claim status as quickly as you can, because there's a high level of marking for the tutors and there's a high level of IV-ing, and especially when you're starting delivering a qualification, you're doing high percentages. So if you're using and because the new qualifications or new units that we're adding on all the time, then that's quite admin heavy as well. But we're now at the stage where we've got direct claim status for most of the qualifications that we're delivering, so it's not so good. It's not so bad. You need to have a close relationship for the same reasons I said before with your MIS department to make sure that you do get the funding down that you're expecting and that you keep on top of that. And you need to have continuous marketing because you're changing your delivery all the time and you're being very responsive. That means more marketing in order to keep your referrals coming. So having that really good relationship with the job centre, with your work programme providers. We deliver in community centres. We get referrals from lots of partners, from job clubs. But we've got to keep all that information up to date, so quite a lot of marketing goes in to do that. And you're not, unlike ESF funding, we're not funded for tracking job outcomes, but in order to show that it's viable and that what we're doing is actually important, we need to track job outcomes. And next year, with job outcome achievement payments, that's going to be more important as well. But you're not funded for it. So it's just one of the barriers, and if anybody finds a way around that to be funded for tracking learners, then please tell me, because I'd love to hear about it. And also, you're not really funded for ongoing one-to-one support. So whereas bigger courses and full qualifications, you can embed time in there to do tutor support and one-to-ones. That doesn't really fit into the model very well. So again, you need to offer that. I mean, we're quite lucky that because we have got all the job clubs around Milton Keynes, that we can meet a lot in the job clubs and we can use the resources that are funded by the council to be able to do that. But if you looked at those Unitards accreditations on your own, you'd struggle to fit that in, and that's obviously quite crucial to the work that you do. So that's the barriers. So a couple of things we've done in terms of making the most of it. Don't know how I'm doing on time. I might be running out. Sorry. One thing that's really useful is trying to get people to do more than one unit. So having pathways, for example. So IT, I'll start with online basics and then we'll slowly progress them up the levels. And because we've captured them, we've got them on a course, then we'll feed them into the next level and we'll encourage. So we'll do quite a lot of marketing within courses and within units as well. So obviously, the more units you get one learner to do, the more viable they become in terms of administration. They're bought into the process a little bit more. They're not going to be as labour intensive, and you're meeting them when they're on the courses, so you're getting some of that one-to-one whilst they're on programme. Just an example of a typical type of course that we'll do, so we'll get them on the induction. We've done 3 units with them already. They might want to work in office, in some kind of office work, so that might be an example of the type of units that we'd put us together as a package for them. Now, if they just do one of those units and then go off the system, that's fine. At least they've done one of those units. But the idea is that the more units they do, obviously, and it's got to be relevant to the learner, obviously. But then it might be that they've done those, and then we can pop another unit on that might be suitable for them. And because we're constantly adapting, we'll find things to try and keep that learner going. And then it's not like starting from new. You can just do enrolment amendment forms rather than full enrolment forms, depending on what your admin process are. So it becomes a little bit less labour intensive.
Sorry, how long are those courses?
They're all different. So intro to business is 2 days, effective customer service is 2 days.
That's very short.
Assertive decision
like
making is I think they're 10 GLH, the first 2, that's 20 GLH, the confidence one. IT user skills, if they did the full award, that's about 60 GLH, but we do it a day and a half over 5 weeks or 6 weeks. And that tends to be quite roll on, roll off, so people will be doing different units at different times. Telephone techniques again is 2 days. They tend to be sort of one unit tends to be 10 to 13 guided learning hours, so we generally deliver most of them in 2 days, 9:30 till 3 or 4, and straight away in 2 days, and then it's done, and then they'll move on to the next one. Other things, and again we've talked about these already this morning, have a really good relationship with your stakeholders. So within Maximus, one of our work programme providers, they do all the recruitment for us. We deliver on their premises, so there's no costs involved. They do all the pre-course administration, so we just turn up on the day and deliver, so it saves, because a lot of our work is pre-enrolment. They do all the printing for us, but we're offering them a fabulous service because we're actually coming in and deliver something where you go, we'll have delivery, you know, you can go and deliver in the job centre. So there are options around that as well. Maximise your referral opportunities. So advertise. So we've got loads of partners. We advertise everywhere all the time, and the more you market it, obviously, the more referrals you're going to get. So keeping everybody up to date is really important. As I said, same as with Maximus, sometimes JCP have delivery availability as well. And if you do deliver on the premises, they're more likely to turn up because they relate it with affecting their benefits. So that's quite important. We also, and we've talked about this already, but we see initial JCP referrals at the job centre. So we're very lucky to have that relationship where we get an advisor just to refer everybody to us, ESOL, basic skills, or vocational, and we will then determine what the best package for them is. And most of them go on the occupational skills induction programme because everybody can benefit from employability support, whether they're high level or low level. It's about getting that interview feedback, and the way we deliver it is quite easy to differentiate between the different levels. So we get them at the job centre, we see them at job centre, we make sure that because the advisors, at the end of the day, job centre advisors aren't necessarily trained to understand what is best for the learner. Yes, they've got an idea, they know the labour market, but they don't know what the individual courses are involved. They don't know enough detail about it to be able to say, okay, well, this person has got to have some basic skills before they come onto provision, because they haven't assessed them. So how would they know that? They don't have the capacity to do that. Yes, you can get a feel for it, but by meeting them and doing some of that stuff at the job centre, it allows us to make sure that the people are referred on the right programme, rather than having the responsibility for the advisor to then, and somebody was talking earlier about the quality of referrals from advisors. It will fluctuate very broadly, but by actually meeting them at the job centre and then determining that ourselves, we're much more likely to get them on the right programme. And then make sure you maximise other funding opportunities as well. So as I said before, we're supplemented by the local council, by other little funding pots that we have, and it allows us to be a little bit more flexible and makes us sustainable. So make sure that you're aware of any sort of local council or any other bids that are available to help. I think this is one thing that we do quite well, because we've always worked quite closely in the community, and we deliver some of our qualifications at the end of a job club, for example, in a community venue, or the beginning of a job club, because that's more accessible to our learners. And you know, one of the first things Martin said was it can be quite an intimidating thing to walk through college doors, but actually by building that confidence and delivering in community venues, we've found that quite helpful. And it's very difficult, but minimise the paperwork as much as you can, because a learner doesn't want to fill in 10 different enrolment forms to do 10 different units. So make sure whatever systems you've got in place at your college, you minimise it. And we just do enrolment amendment forms. So once we've got all their details, we fill it in for them, they sign and date at the bottom of it, and then they're enrolled on the next unit. And we've agreed self-declaration forms in terms of eligibility. We're always still try and get them to bring benefits evidence in, and tell them how to get the benefits evidence, what telephone number to ring, or whether, you know, sometimes they'll be able to get it from their advisor at the job centre. But minimise that, make it as simple for them as possible. And as I said before, just double check on Laura before you start delivering anything to make sure it is really still fundable, because I have had a few bad experiences where something has looked as though it's fundable, and then a couple of months later when I come to deliver it, all of a sudden it isn't anymore. Again, learn from experience, probably best not to use massive amount of awarding bodies, because it gets quite complicated. So if you find a good awarding body, as I'm sure I think there's one in the room, then
Do a little bit more.
You know, or one or two awarding bodies, it just makes it a lot simpler. And I think the awarding bodies are getting a lot clever about now about being able to offer you what you need. So, and again, I'm not teaching a British case, but make sure that what you're delivering is reflective of labour market demand and also learner demand. But you know, you've got to sort of balance the two. If you delivered everything that was learner demand, there probably wouldn't be any jobs at the end of it. So it's about getting that balance right. Make sure you've got a good relationship with your MIS department to make sure all your learners are being fully funded. Another thing that I don't know if anybody's found an answer to this, please tell me if you have, but 18-year-olds aren't funded on adult learner responsive, and Unitized accreditation isn't fundable. So you need to make a decision. Are you gonna? Don't have massive amount of 18-year-old learners, but we don't get any funding for them. So sometimes, like for the EdExcel award, for example, the EdExcel units on our induction, we can actually just put them in for an award, and then they'll also get funded for them. But most of them, they're not fundable. So you need to be aware of that and decide whether. I mean, in terms of inclusion and equality, I would say that you probably need to let them through, but that's obviously a situation for individual colleges. And I know there are some colleges that are saying, sorry, 18-year-olds aren't fundable. So you just need to be aware of that. And try and keep your courses. We found that the shorter we get the courses, the better retention, the better success. And also, obviously, you have to be aware, again, about known Jobcentre processes and contract, the Jobcentre contract conditionality, to make sure that actually you're not putting on something that's going to jeopardise them losing their benefits. So they can do it up to 2 weeks full time, or they can do under 16 hours a week. So you just need to be aware of that. And sometimes, because we do so many different courses, sometimes we have to say, actually, no, you can't do that. You can't do all these 3 units this week because you're going to go over. You know, you'll have to wait until the next one goes on. Which is, I know, is very frustrating. But what we don't want to do is actually put learners in a worse place than they were before they came to us. So it's quite important. And just one thing, we wanted to deliver as much and be as condensed as we could. So we're delivering from 9 o'clock in the morning till 5 o'clock in the evening. It's a bit too much for a lot of learners that have been out of education for a long time, and it excluded a lot of working lone parents. So now we deliver 9:30 till 3, and that still allows us to manage a little bit. So if somebody needs to go slightly earlier just to make the school run, then we can accommodate that.
It also allows us to work with our employers to understand their needs, to understand who has vacancies and what their skill requirements are. Are they looking at entry level? Are they looking at experience? Are they looking at professional? Okay, so the purpose of the LMI is to improve the client's prospects of gaining employment. So the new Universal Job Match website, hopefully you'll all be familiar with it and have seen that obviously that's where the DWP is moving to. The LMI data that is available on the website is available through public reporting, so anybody can access it. You don't have to work at the DWP, you don't have to work at a college, you don't have to have an account. You can access it as a job seeker, you can access it as a student, as anyone in this room could just log on today and find this information. It's all there. And the information that's on there is driven by the vacancies that the employers are now putting on there. So if you already know this, I apologise, but the way the Universal Job Match system now runs is that the employers are directly uploading their vacancies onto the website for claimants to find. So whereas before employers would contact the Jobcentre and say I want to put a vacancy on, and the Jobcentre would do that for them, what's happening now is that employers have an account where they can actually go onto the website, upload their vacancies, and they can manage their own system, they can manage their own, they can look at client CVs, they can dip into the talent pool. So it's kind of a job board like you would use in recruitment for all employers, and it's a free service. So the data that's generated is generated by what the employer is doing at the time. The LMI data as well now is live, so you can go in there now, you can get a picture of what's happening at the moment. So before, when you were using the NOMIS, you were relying on a monthly download of the data. We were going in at a certain date and you were getting a back picture of what's happening. Because it's happening, because the way the Universal Job Match is set up and employers are on there all the time, it's constantly updating. So if we wanted to log on now and have a look at what was happening as we speak and how many vacancies were live this minute, we could do that, which is obviously a useful tool for us. We're not waiting anymore for that download to come. Okay, so some of the available reports. I've got a big document which I'll show you shortly. I'm not going to go through it all, but there are hundreds and hundreds of reports that you can find on the public reporting page. And this is just a little snapshot of the sort of things you can find. So what is most important to us at Gloucestershire College and what we use the most, I've popped up here, but obviously I would advise you go away and have a look at it and see, okay, well, this is what I'm interested in, and dip into the reports and look what you want. So there's a lot of information around client and claimant activity. So how many claimants are in your area, what those claimants are looking to do, how they classify themselves, the qualification level that they hold as well. So whether they are coming in at entry level, whether they're coming in at degree level. So you can get an idea of the client base that you're working with. You can also get information now which you weren't able to get on NOMIS around employer activity. So you can see vacancies that are being posted, how many employers are using Universal Job Match, what careers they're looking for. So the NOMIS information around employers before was quite basic. You could see, well, there are X amount of vacancies in this sector, X amount of vacancies in that sector. Because the employers are having they have an account with Universal Job Match, you can now get a little bit more information about them, specifically about what they're doing, and you can see who they are, which is quite nice. Reports can be generated anything from national level right the way down to individual wards, so whatever you want to look at. If you want to look at things, the big picture, if you want to look at your county, you want to see what's going on in Gloucestershire or Wiltshire, you can do that. If you want to come down to your city level, you can do that as well. You can look at Milton Keynes, at Gloucester, or you can come right down to the ward. So whatever it is specifically you're interested in. So if you might be thinking of putting on a course that's off campus in a specific ward of the area, you can have a look at that and see where the jobs are specifically there. You can also look at your reports on a day view, a weekly view, or you can go back for the month. Some of the reports do vary, and it goes into a lot more detail. I won't bore you with that now, but the whole point being is that whereas before you had this monthly download, you do have this ability to go in and tailor what it is you actually want to do. So I want to know what's happening this week, I want to know what's happening today, I want to know what happened over the last 3 months. You're able to tailor your reports to do that. And there's an example of a report that I pulled off just before I put this presentation together. It's a little bit small, but you can see that's a weekly view of what was happening in Gloucestershire, and that was an idea, in Gloucester, and that was the vacancies that we had available. So we had 921 vacancies in Gloucestershire when I looked at that. I looked at it again this morning, that had actually changed to 830 something. So you can see, you can go in and you can have a look exactly what's happening now, so the data is very current, whereas before we were forecasting back. Yes,
The recruitment staffing agents, I'm presuming that is jobs posted through those agencies, so it may not necessarily be 623 individual jobs.
No, and obviously there are, I'll come on to some of the constraints about it at the moment, but yes, that's right. That's recruitment agency, so there are 623 vacancies at the moment by a recruitment agency. And there are still quite a lot of teething problems with this data, and I think Martin's gone, but he so we can't quiz him on it. But he would say there's quite a lot of things that they are still looking to do. They want to get the agencies to classify. You can see also not classified vacancies 44. That's actually quite low to what I have seen. I've gone in there sometimes and it's been up to 200 where people have just. What the problem is, you now, although you're getting a lot more data because the employer is putting the information on there directly, what you're also getting is the downside of that, which is that you're relying on an employer to fill it out correctly. And if they tick not classified, that information is useless. And it's also useless to them because when the claimants go in and search for those jobs, that it's not going to come up in any search. So it's obviously still very new, and there's some teething problems with that. And that's one of the things that we did highlight, is that I think when I first did this, it was something like there was 921 vacancies. I did it in week 1, and 400 and something were unclassified. So nobody was using the website correctly. So that information was just, it was useless really. But that's a vast improvement. But I think you can see that the agency number is quite high. But it does break it down into the different areas. You can see what vacancies are. There's obviously 24 retail jobs in that particular week, which is quite useful information if you're then going to go back and triangulate that with your curriculum. But that's just an example of one of the reports you can have. So in your packs is this. I'm not going to go through it all because it's 25 pages, but this is, as part of the project, the DWP got in touch with us and said they were putting together this document. This is their employer product. So this is what they give to employers that are using Universal Job Match. And this is a step-by-step how to get the reports off it that you want. Like I said, if you work through this document, then you should be able to find the reports that you need. Happy to talk to anybody at greater detail if they want to, about how you get the reports off there. But that's the step-by-step on how you use it, how you go in, how you log in, how you can set a report up. You can't save the reports like you used to be able to on Nomis, unfortunately. You have to go in and create a new report every time, which is a little bit frustrating. But I'm told that they are working on that so that we can go in and find it. But this is hot off the press. This hasn't come out. This hasn't been published yet. So quite lucky to have that today. So that's come from Department of Work and Pension. So if anyone's got any feedback on this, then they're still interested to hear it. It's still a working document. But if you work through that, you should be able to find the reports that you're after. So to access the information, this hopefully should be quite familiar to you. This is the page that the claimants see when they go in, and you can access it on there. So like I say, you don't need to set up you don't need an account, you don't need to be an employer. Anybody could do this. If a job seeker wanted to have a look at this information, they could do. And you just go on as if you were going on to Universal Job Match, and then the reporting information is held down the bottom there. Anybody got any questions so far? Anything? No? Would you be interested to have a look at some reports that we've got? We could do now. I could show you if it would work.
The interesting thing in Gloucestershire College, not only do we use it for our own LMI, we also use this to inform our students on their courses about where the jobs are, and it's on our boards in our JobSmart room, so we use it to inform them, so not just to inform us. Because if they want to be a rocket scientist, they can be, but they might need to go to Scotland to do that. There's not a job in Gloucester.
Okay, so this is sit down. This is a list of public reports that you. That's the first page you get to. So they're the reports that you can find. There's a little bit of information there that you can see which each report looks at. So the top one is the one that we probably would be most interested in, which is what jobs are in your area, the basic information that you would need. So this is what it looks like. So this is we do it for the week just gone. You filter your geography, so you decide do you want to look at the region, the district, local authority units. If we went for district, this is where it's a little bit confusing. You have to move over here to the geography filter because they can't put everything on, so you have to enter what you would like. So I do.
Is that why when I once went on a geography sub-listing, I couldn't find anything in Wiltshire and Swindon?
Yeah, because it was there, and that's what through me to start with as well. I was like, where is it? It stopped at D or something, and if you go into local ward, it stops at AA or something because they can only have so many records up at one time. So if we tried Swindon, for example, click there we are, it appears, so you have it there. All employers.
Is that being fed back? They
It's been
can't
fed
change
back.
it, can
They can't change it, because it's a national website. They can only hold so many records at once. You can see it's quite quickly comes up, and there's your Swindon. Can't make that bigger. So there's the vacancies in Swindon at the moment. You've got 780 recruitment agency vacancies. So you can see the reports can be generated quite quickly. What's nice about this that you couldn't do on Nomis as well is that all the reports can be exported to Excel. It's a reflection of employers that are posting jobs at the job centre, and that's all it is. If an employer chooses not to go down that road to advertise themselves or to use a job board or to use a recruitment agency, I mean, you are getting a little bit of information about recruitment agencies, but nothing helpful. They're just that there are 700 vacancies from recruitment agencies. So it's a snapshot, and it works with other things that you need to be doing. And I mean, that's another presentation, but all the other things that you need to do. But it is quite useful to know what the job centre are doing. The constraints are that you're relying on that employer to fill that information out correctly and to classify that information.
Does this also give you claimant count by job centre and type of claimant per job centre as well as Nomis?
It does. That
Useful.
information's still available on Nomis, so you can
Yeah,
still
I
go
thought
into
it
Nomis
was,
and
yeah.
download exactly the same report for your claimant count.
Yeah.
All that's missing off of Nomis now is anything to do with the vacancies.
Okay.
But yes, it does. It also will tell you how many people are using Universal Job Match. So again, you can get an idea and say, okay, well, we've got X amount of claimants in the area, we've got X amount of people using Universal Job Match. There's a gap there. There's that many people not engaging with this system yet, so you can see that. So you can get a little bit of information that way as well. But yeah, it does do it, but I think probably you would use Nomis as well for that to get a really accurate. Because again, it's only what's happening on here, so it's only a snapshot. Another report which we use, which is quite, I won't go through them all, but career levels, halfway employers is quite an interesting one. That classifies what an employer is looking for. It doesn't tell you what the jobs are, but it does give you an idea of the career levels that the employer is after. So again, we do Gloucester, perhaps, this time.
So where it says district, that's local authority area, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
We do Gloucestershire. It works. Okay, so that's career levels. So you can see 3,000 not supplied, which is really helpful. But what it does show you is that there are 423 vacancies or that are entry level.
And actually 423 student high school level apprenticeship possibilities there. So it gives you much wider information for your organisation. And I found this quite useful, to be honest, in terms of planning curriculum areas that when we're designing and actually giving the apprenticeship units more information. Do you realise there's all these jobs out here?
So this information, like I said, I'm delivering it here to tell you about it today just because we've tested it as part of our pilot. It's by no means polished, it's by no means perfect. There are flaws with this data. It is a snapshot, but it is also a very useful tool that's there. And if you work through the document, I think you have a look at what your individual needs are and what you particularly are interested in as an organisation, and I'm pretty sure that you will find a report that's going to help with that. And like I said, the product itself, I think this whole reporting thing is something it's still very much in development stages. This document hasn't gone out to the employers yet, so we are seeing it early on. But unfortunately, because Nomis is no longer available, which I was very upset about, then this is kind of the next best thing at the moment. And I think it is going to be a useful product because it's live. It's now. There's a lot more flexibility in terms of what you can look at. I'm interested in a week. I'm interested in this ward. I'm interested in this area. You could bring it right down to vacancy. If you're interested in care vacancies in Milton Keynes at entry level, you can find out what information there is about that, how many vacancies are there, what employers there are, and it's all available. So, any questions or?
I mean, I think it will be helped by separating the recruitment stuff out. Do you still find there's quite a lot of duplicate vacancies?
I'm told, and probably Tor would probably know the technicalities of this, that they do have mechanisms of making sure that there isn't duplication, but again, this is very reliant on employer input.
Never going to get it perfect.
What you're never going to stop is a recruitment agency saying, I'm recruiting for drivers, I'm recruiting for office people. You know, anybody who's experienced of recruitment agencies know, we all used to do it. You put an advert on for administrator. Maybe you had a job, maybe you didn't have a job, and that's the problem with recruitment agencies. You're never going to get a true reflection of exactly what's going on in the market. And as long as you understand that, and understand how they operate, then you can kind of have a feel for what's going on. They do know what's going on. They do know they understand the labour market intelligence as well, and they can sense trends. So it's not useless data, but I don't think there's any way of ever knowing exactly 100% how many vacancies are in your area.
It's quite useful to poach somebody from a recruitment agency to come and work with you, so they can get through this. Oh, Amy. So she knows all the tricks of the trade. It's quite useful. One of the things that we do in our classes with our students, because obviously we look at the UJ as part of their employability skills, and the Jobcentre know fully that we're going to encourage them to use the UJ for searching, but we also recommend get them to look at maybe 2 or 3 other job boards, because it's not all going to be on this job board, so they have to use this, but we encourage them to use maybe 2 more. I mean, this is run by Monster, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is a Monster job board, really. So
And it just operates in exactly the same way as any other job board, and I think as long as you remember that, you can see the use of the data. I mean, another thing that we said was a big issue is that the default for when an employer puts a vacancy on, it defaults for 3 months. And so that job may well have gone within a week, but it stays on the system for 3 months unless that employer goes and takes that back off. And the Jobcentre are assuring us that they're doing everything they can to get the employer to do that, but it is a flaw in the system that if an employer decides not to take that information off the system, then that's still going to show as a live job.
how does this compare with some of the LMI resources you guys are getting? Because obviously we use this as one of our sources. So does anybody use any other way of gathering data for their organisations that might be useful to the group? Anything better out there? Weston, do you use anything different?
I've got a good relationship with the Employment Engagement Officer within the local job centre, so I speak to her regularly and find out what's going on in the area, not just about jobs, but who's got planning permission coming up, that sort of thing, who's given a hint that they might be making mass redundancies. It is gathering all the different dimensions, not just the jobs themselves, really.
We do that with local authority. We're with the development officer, and they'll say, do you know this is coming in, this is coming in. So that's outside of this remit. So again, it's a bit broader, isn't it? So it's good to be talking to your planning office. What about Milton Keynes? Do you use any other
Again,
source?
we tend to do quite a lot. I think it's economic and strategic development at the council, but you know they have any new employee that comes into Milton Keynes, and it's quite good for new employers. They have an agreement with them that they will take so many work experience or that, and that's a contract of them coming into, and so therefore because we work quite closely with them, that's how we find out about a lot of new things coming in.
And it's useful, isn't it? Anybody else other than that? Anybody use any other sources?
We in Grimsby have a designated sales team who actively market all institute products, but they're also collecting information as they go along.
So is that your business development team?
Yes.
Yes.
And we have a member of Jobcentre Plus staff who works 50% of the time at Jobcentre Plus and 50% with us. And so obviously he's a good...
So they're bringing this information in as well as your business team. So you've got that sort of triangulation. Because we use a business development team as well. What about...
Same business development team. Universal job match through contacts with the council and then with job centres and work programme providers as well.
So we're all doing pretty much the same sort of thing. There's nothing out there that we're not doing. Maybe Swindon, is there anything you're doing differently?
No, I'm very much the same as everyone else is doing. Since Amy in the Kassam Stadium, I had a much better idea of looking at the information, and usually I do it every fortnight just to sort of compare, so because then you can get sort of a good idea of what's happening within the local area. But apart from that, obviously it's just notifications of redundancies, really.
So it's claimants, levels, jobs.
I was searching there as well. Again, it's some of you is going over a little bit of old ground, but if you can get the recruitment agencies to play with you as well, and to understand what you're about and what you're trying to do, whether they may not come to you with vacancies as such, and they're not desperate for candidates at the moment because the marketplace isn't it, but they will talk to you and they will tell you what's happening, and we do that, and we've built up relationships with some local recruitment agencies, and we keep in touch with them. We tell them what we're doing, and we talk to them about what we're trying to achieve, and they will take clients, and they will take a fee from them, and they do talk to us about what's happening. They do know, and they do say, well, actually, at the moment, we are looking for people that have this level of experience, or there does seem to be a pickup in this kind of job, and that does help. So although the agencies can be a bit of an enigma, and a bit of a pain to all of us, because they don't tell you what they're doing, and they keep it very secretive, and they say they've got all these vacancies and they haven't really. But if you talk to them, if they understand where you're coming from, and that what we're trying to do is improve people's employability, then actually that's a benefit to them, because they often work with people very similar to what we do, that people that perhaps struggle to find full-time work, that actually look for temporary work as a springboard into employment. And if we can increase their chance of employability, then the agencies will be quite receptive to that, and they will share a little bit of their knowledge, not a lot.